Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with works you collect compulsively. You just can't stop. You keep getting them, and they accumulate until you've got billions of them. But you love them so much, and you can't bear to part with them. It just becomes something that's mentally unhealthy. Yeah, that's the idea. And the work I'm talking about now is Mozart's Violin Concerto number 3. Now, the most popular Mozart violin concerto is the fifth, the so-called Turkish, because it has this Turkish interlude in the finale. The rondo finale is this whole episode with Colenio's strings clacking away, and it's doing it's very Turkish. And it's charming. It's delightful. But the fact of the matter is the Mozart violin concertos are not major Mozart. They're not his best concertos. They're early. And he was something like, 20 or something when he wrote them. I don't know. Of course, that's like being 80 if you're another composer. In Mozartian terms, he lived in kind of like dog years or something like that. But he wrote 5 violin concertos. His greatest violin work is actually the Symphonia Concertante for violin and viola, Kerschel 3 something. I mean, that's an E flat. That's what it is. But that's possibly his greatest string concerto, one of the greatest string concertos ever. But the violin concertos are somewhat modest. They're not particularly demanding technically. They're unusual in that, for Mozart to write 5 violin concertos in that day and age, really until the middle of the next century, was really a strange thing because he was a pianist. And so, violin concertos were written by violin virtuosi for themselves. To write a pile of them for others to play was weird. I mean, it was unusual for the day, and there are 5 of them, as we know, and they were written for specific purposes, and that's fine. We don't need to go into the details of their composition. But the third violin concerto has a slow movement. It has a slow movement that sounds like the old Kodak ad, wasn't it that one? Good morning, yesterday, you wake up and time has slipped away, then suddenly it's hard to find the memories you left behind. Do you remember the times of your life? Remember that ad? Remember the commercial? I remember every jingle I've ever heard in my life. It's a curse, but I remember it. And the first time I heard the third concerto of Mozart with its slow movement, it is the sexiest tune in the world. It is so hauntingly, meltingly yummy and beautiful. And he switches out the oboes in the orchestra in favor of 2 flutes that add just this ethereal loveliness. I mean, it's a piece of music that is so perfect, and it could only have been written by Mozart because the melody has that long-breathed sensuality that nobody else captured as well as Mozart does. That combination of, it's sensual, but not too far from innocence, as the old perfume ad went. Anyway, I heard that movement and I was just a puddle. I mean, totally a puddle. And from then on, I've listened to every performance of the violin concerto I could get. And it's not that easy to do well. One of the things about Mozart is his music is often very tricky, but it's tricky in ways that rely on the fundaments of music. That is, phrasing, intonation, overall pacing and tempo. It's all of these things. And this is one of those things. And there have been some horrible performances of this concerto. And I made a video about them too. So you can go and take a look at the Mozart concerto. There's just a vile one with what's his name? Conducting, who is it? Musica Antigua Cologne, that guy. Reinhard Goebel, and I forget the violinist. Her name is, irretrievably erased from my memory. Just grotesque. I mean, especially on period instruments. They have no idea how to play music that is this basic in terms of its simplicity and vocality. I mean, if you cannot make the violin sing like a human voice with vibrato, with all of that warmth of tone, then you have no business playing this concerto. And there are 4 performances that I turn to when I want to listen to this concerto. I mean, they're my performances. As of everything in this series, we're not talking about the best and the worst and all that junk. We're talking about the ones that I turn to for pleasure, my own personal pleasure. And some of these, I mean, are reference recordings and whatnot. You'll know, because I don't like the crappy ones for my own personal pleasure. I like the best ones for my own personal pleasure, of course. So I have 4 in this particular series, 2 older performances and 2 newer performances, which just goes to show that there are still fabulous violinists around doing this music the way it ought to be played, irrespective of the period instrument people loudly proclaiming that to make the music sound sensual and beautiful and languorous and is somehow evil. Well, screw them. So, David Oistrakh with the Berlin Philharmonic on Warner. Yes, Oistrakh is amazing. The big Oistrakh box is coming. We're waiting. I'm waiting. We'll be talking about it when it gets here. In the meantime, his Mozart was absolutely beautiful and fabulous, and everybody loved it. And it's been up here in terms of selections for like a billion years, and it will always be. So there's that. Next, Arthur Grumiaux, probably the reference recording in these works, at least it was when I was talking about him, with Colin Davis and the London Symphony. Absolutely fabulous. The epitome of tasteful virtuosity. I mean, virtuosity always placed at the service of musical expression. Totally, totally gorgeous, with a perfectly vocal tone. You should listen to him, all of you violinists out there, and especially the period instrument ones. And don't tell me he's doing it wrong. Imitate what he does. Be as expressive as he can be, and you'll see, what needs to be done. Next, the modern ones, the 2 modern ones. First, Frank Peter Zimmermann with the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra Chamber Orchestra on Hänssler. A beautiful series of Mozart concertos. It's on a small label. It gets no attention. Nobody cares. Frank Peter Zimmermann is one of the great violinists, particularly of the German tradition. And they are exquisitely tuned, beautifully sensitive performances. Absolutely lovely in every respect. And last but not least, Anne-Sophie Mutter with the London Symphony Orchestra. She plays and conducts and does one hell of a job. And I have to say, she recorded these concerti, remember, with Herbert von Karajan. Ooh, baby. Both some for EMI and some for Deutsche Grammophon when she was like 3. And she was a Karajan protege and all that stuff. She's waited all this time to redo them. And in that time, she's become almost a self-parody in some repertoire, because she plays romantic music with such excess. I mean, it's just over the top, and there's a real question of taste in there somewhere. However, for Mozart, she really reins it in appropriately. These are wonderfully expressive performances that are at the same time beautifully shaped and lovely, and a real tribute, frankly, to a mature artist who's revisiting repertoire that was the scene of her youthful triumphs, and she doesn't blow it. And for that, I think she deserves a tremendous amount of attention. So there you have it. Those are my 3. The list is down below this video. You can take a look for yourself. Exquisite performances of one of Mozart's greatest concerto slow movements. God, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. If you don't know it, give it a listen. Start with the slow movement. I mean, the rest of it's very nice too. It's a charming concerto, the whole thing. I mean, it's full of good tunes, and it's fun to listen to. But that slow movement, it just takes everything to another level. Only Mozart could have done it. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.